The first sign that something was terribly wrong was not the police at his door, the angry calls from his bank, or even the strange message that appeared on his phone. It was the moment a little boy looked up at his father across a kitchen table and asked why their lights might be turned off. For 38-year-old single dad Tavian Mercer, life had never been easy, but he had always believed that if he worked hard, kept his head down, and protected his son, they would somehow make it through. He never imagined that one powerful woman could turn his ordinary life into a nightmare with a few hidden commands sent through a phone he carried in his pocket every day. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can give people a second chance and that good people deserve to be heard before they are judged, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Your support helps stories like this reach people who need them. Tavian lived with his 9-year-old son, Kellan, in a modest apartment above a small neighborhood bakery. Every morning, daylight came through the thin curtains, painting pale rectangles across the kitchen floor as Tavian prepared scrambled eggs and packed a simple lunch before taking Kellan to school. Tavian worked as a freelance maintenance technician for businesses around the city. He repaired network equipment, security systems, electrical controls, and anything else people were willing to pay him to fix. It was not glamorous work, but it was honest. After his wife passed away several years earlier, Tavian had learned how to become both father and mother, cook and cleaner, provider and comforter. His greatest fear was not being poor. It was failing the little boy who trusted him more than anyone in the world. One Tuesday morning, Tavian received a job request from a prestigious technology company called Veyra Dynamics. The company was led by its 39-year-old CEO, Serafina Vale, a brilliant and fiercely private executive known throughout the business world for turning struggling companies into billion-dollar enterprises. Tavian had heard stories about her. People described her as ruthless, impatient, and almost impossible to impress. Still, he accepted the assignment because the payment was enough to cover Kellan's overdue school expenses and several months of rent. The assignment appeared simple. Tavian was supposed to inspect several communication devices used by a senior executive whose phone had been behaving strangely. When he arrived at Veyra Dynamics during the bright afternoon, the building seemed almost unreal, with enormous glass walls reflecting the clear blue sky and employees moving quickly through spotless corridors. Tavian felt out of place in his worn work jacket, but he reminded himself that he was there because he knew how to solve problems. Serafina was waiting in a private office overlooking the city. She did not smile when Tavian entered. She watched him carefully while he examined the damaged equipment. During the inspection, Tavian noticed something unusual in the company's communication system. A series of unauthorized background connections appeared to be reaching an outside server. He mentioned the problem, but Serafina immediately became guarded. She told him to focus only on the equipment he had been hired to repair. Tavian did exactly that, unaware that the brief discovery had made him a person of interest. What Tavian did not know was that Veyra Dynamics was already fighting an internal crisis. Millions of dollars had begun disappearing from a restricted corporate account through carefully disguised transactions. Someone was stealing money while making the activity appear to originate from legitimate company devices. Serafina had been desperately searching for the person responsible. Her investigators had failed to find the source, and her board was demanding answers. Then someone suggested Tavian. He was an outsider. He had accessed company equipment. He had noticed the suspicious connections. And he had no powerful friends who could protect him. Serafina made a terrible decision. Without telling Tavian, she authorized a covert cybersecurity operation that placed malicious software on his phone during a later service visit. The program was designed to monitor his activity and secretly copy information from the device. She convinced herself that she was not destroying an innocent man's life, she was protecting thousands of employees and investors. But the software did something far more dangerous than anyone expected. Within days, Tavian's phone began overheating. His battery disappeared within hours. Strange applications appeared and vanished. His banking application repeatedly logged him out. Tavian assumed the phone was simply old. He could not afford a replacement, so he continued using it. Then one afternoon, his bank account was suddenly frozen. Tavian stood inside a grocery store holding a small basket of food while his card was declined at the checkout. He tried again. Nothing. The cashier apologized. Tavian stepped outside and called the bank. The representative told him there was an unusual security investigation involving transactions connected to his device. His stomach dropped. He had barely enough money left for groceries. That evening, Kellan was waiting beside the apartment window when Tavian came home. The boy had drawn a picture at school of himself and his father standing beneath a large blue house. Tavian looked at it and forced a smile, hiding the fear spreading through his chest. Over the next 2 days, everything collapsed. His freelance accounts were suspended. A client cancelled a major contract after receiving an alert that Tavian's device had supposedly been associated with suspicious financial activity. His rent payment bounced. The school called about Kellan's outstanding fees. Tavian sat awake at the kitchen table after midnight, staring at his phone while the refrigerator hummed in the darkness. He felt trapped. But then he remembered something from the Veyra Dynamics assignment. While examining the company's equipment, Tavian had seen a strange connection pattern. At the time, he had ignored it because he had not wanted to interfere with a corporate system. Now he realized the same pattern appeared on his phone. Tavian was not a cybersecurity expert, but he understood machines. He knew that systems left traces. If someone had entered his phone, they had left fingerprints. Using an old laptop that had belonged to his late wife, Tavian began examining the device's behavior. He worked through the night while Kellan slept in the next room. He compared timestamps, connection records, and files. Slowly, a horrifying picture emerged. Someone had planted malware on his phone. Worse, the malware had been communicating with infrastructure connected to Veyra Dynamics. Tavian did not sleep. The next morning, instead of confronting Serafina, he contacted an independent digital investigator named Mireya, a former corporate security analyst who now helped ordinary people fight complicated technology disputes. Mireya examined Tavian's evidence and immediately understood the seriousness of the situation. She told him that if his findings were genuine, someone inside Veyra Dynamics had deliberately compromised his device and might have been using it as a bridge to access sensitive systems. Tavian finally understood what had happened. He had not been the thief. He had been used as the doorway. Meanwhile, inside Veyra Dynamics, Serafina received an emergency call. Every major company account had suddenly been frozen by the bank. Payroll was at risk. International transfers had stopped. The board was demanding an explanation. Investigators had detected the same malicious signature that had appeared on Tavian's phone inside the company's own financial network. Serafina stared at the security report in disbelief. Her decision to spy on Tavian had created the weakness someone else had exploited. For the first time in years, the woman who had built her career on control realized she had lost it. Mireya eventually discovered that the malware had not been designed by Tavian or connected to his personal finances at all. It had been introduced by someone inside Veyra Dynamics who had manipulated Serafina into believing Tavian was responsible. The real criminal was a senior financial officer named Orson Kier, who had been secretly diverting company funds for months. He had planted false evidence against Tavian because he knew Serafina would react aggressively and eliminate the easiest target. But Orson had made one mistake. He had underestimated Tavian. The evidence collected from Tavian's phone revealed the chain of commands leading back to Orson's system. Investigators moved quickly. The financial freeze that had nearly destroyed Tavian's life became the very thing that exposed the larger fraud. Serafina personally went to Tavian's apartment the following afternoon. The city was bright under clear daylight, but Tavian did not feel the warmth of it. He stood outside his building while Kellan played with a small paper airplane near the sidewalk. Serafina approached without assistance, security guards, or expensive cars. For perhaps the first time in her adult life, she looked uncertain. She did not ask Tavian for forgiveness. She admitted what she had done. She admitted that she had authorized the software to be planted on his phone because she had suspected him without proof. She admitted that her fear had made her careless. And she admitted that an innocent father had paid the price for her need to control everything. Tavian listened quietly. He thought about the grocery store. The declined card. Kellan's school fees. The sleepless nights. The fear in his son's eyes when he had asked whether they were going to lose their home. Then he looked at Serafina and realized something important. Justice did not require cruelty. He told her that what she had done was wrong, and that she needed to take responsibility. But he also told her that admitting the truth was the first step toward making things right. Serafina restored Tavian's contracts, paid the financial damages caused by the investigation, and established an independent security review within her company. She also personally ensured that Kellan's school expenses were covered, not as charity, but as part of the compensation Tavian had earned through the ordeal. Months later, Tavian was invited back to Veyra Dynamics. This time, he did not arrive as a temporary repairman. He arrived as the company's new independent security consultant. Serafina had learned that the person she once considered insignificant had been the one who exposed the truth that saved her company. Tavian still lived in the same apartment. He still cooked breakfast for Kellan. He still repaired things with his own hands. But something inside him had changed. He no longer believed that powerful people were automatically right, and he no longer believed that ordinary people were powerless. Kellan's paper airplane still sat on the refrigerator. One evening, as daylight faded outside the kitchen window, Tavian watched his son finish his homework. Kellan looked up and smiled, completely unaware of how close their little family had come to losing everything. Tavian smiled back. He had once thought being a good father meant protecting his child from every hardship. Now he understood that sometimes being a good father meant showing your child how to stand back up after the world knocks you down. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Your support can help another person discover that one difficult chapter does not have to become the ending of their story. And before we end, here is a special request: comment "second chances" below if you believe people can make terrible mistakes, take responsibility, and still choose to become better. Because Tavian's story was never really about a phone, a company, or a frozen bank account. It was about what happens when an ordinary person refuses to let fear define him. And sometimes, the person everyone overlooks is the very person who ends up showing everyone else what courage truly looks like.